principles we will not compromise that guide our decision making. If you're taking notes, I want you to consider writing that down. Values are non negotiable principles we will not compromise that guide our decision making. Whether it's in writing or not, whether it's been stated or not, every consultant, every business, every firm, every nonprofit has some vision, some mission, some values. Whether we put them on paper or not, I promise you they are there. They're in the atmosphere. It's floating around. Now, why is this important? When you have a tough decision to make as a consultant or as a business owner or as an entrepreneur, I want you to make values-based decisions. How do you make tough decisions, Rita? I make them based on my values. How do you do that, Christine? I make it based on my values. When we learn to make values-based decisions, then a lot of other things fall into place. Why is it important? I don't know if you've had this experience yet, but my values have put me in positions where though I had the skills and the abilities and the time to do certain work, my values dictated I can't do that. Has anybody ever been there? I can't do that. I've had checks in front of me. The check was there and the check looked pretty nice. And I can't take that check. Values. So whatever and I can't dictate what your values are, but I want you to spend time understanding your vision, your mission, and your values. Why? Question: can you get there by yourself? Many of us are solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, consultants. Can you say to me right now, Charles, tell everybody to get out my way. I'm good by myself on my own. That's why I left that company. This is it. I'm here by myself. I think the answer is no, you can't. I think though we all have our own firms, we all need somebody. Fair? And since we need somebody, watch this. At some point, we are going to need somebody who's not like us. Write that down. To grow this business, we are going to lead and engage people who are different than us. And it's not a selfish, manipulative manner. It's just saying that I am an advocate for community. I believe in community. Community is one of my values, by the way. And I think community is a beautiful thing because the diversity of community just excites me. And I want to be in a space where the community is there and I'm there and I'm contributing to community. But to lead and engage across differences, I've got to have those skills, those competencies and capacities to really engage community because everybody's not like Charles. And guess what? Thankful for that. I'm so thankful for that. But what's also important when it comes to this exercise, from now on, when you are going to work with a nonprofit or a government agency or a small business, whoever your clients are, before you commit to a contract, this is going to be tough for some of us. It was tough for me. Before you commit to a contract, before you sign an agreement, before you clearly define the scope of work, I want you to spend time talking about their vision, their mission, and their values. Because now we are in a space where I am going to say to consultants, you are not looking for the same values, but you got to ask yourself, are the values of this client or this firm congruent and consistent with my values? It's not about judgment, folks. It's not about right or wrong. It's about making sure that you put yourself in a position where you don't have to end up compromising your values. And diversity, equity, and inclusion, if you've not figured it out yet, these are issues of values. It's really not about a program or a policy. It's really about our values, about the non-negotiable principles we will not compromise that guide our decision-making. That's what this is about. So this is the frame that we have to operate within. Now, let me pause for a second before I go any further. You can come off mute if you want to talk to me since we don't have that many folks. This is a good time to do this. Somebody tell me about what I just said in the screen here. Does this resonate with you at all? Is it speaking to you? Is it off base? Give me some feedback, please.
Yeah, it does resonate. I mean, I think it's tricky to have that full conversation before you sign the contract. But we're in a fortunate position of working with nonprofits that typically have their mission and vision on their website, so we can already learn that part. Yep. Values is not always listed, but I definitely have worked with organizations whose values are not aligned with my own, rarely. And those engagements have come to an end.
Chris, how long did it take you to figure that out? Was it kind of quick, or was once you were deeply embedded into the organization?
With one of them, I had been working with the organization for a very long time, and they got a new CEO who was unethical. And with another, it didn't take very long to see it.
That's right. That's right. Fantastic.
And something, Chris, you know, to your point about a lot of our organizations that we work with do sort of state right up front what their vision, mission, and values are. That's not always true for the people we end up working with.
Yep.
Right. So I have gone into engagements where I'm like, yeah, this organization's vision, mission, and values works for me, but this individual's do not. And though that's, you know, when engagement will fall apart.
Yep. Good point, Alicia. Thank you. Anyone else want to share? All righty. So as we travel on this journey, leading and engaging across differences, it's a journey. And what does the journey look like? In practice, the journey looks like this. I'm going to put some words up on the screen, and then I'm going to walk through them with you. You are all leaders. We know that already. This is not leadership development, leadership training. You don't need that. However, I'm going to tell you the gap that we have to fill when it comes to our work. Though people are not calling you in for leadership training and leadership development, people are looking to your leadership. They're looking for your leadership. And I think as consultants, as that neutral, objective third party, we all have a platform. We have an opportunity when we're working with clients or others to lead and engage. We can model something. What does that look like? Well, we know these examples, leadership is setting the example and we set the tone. We get that. We get that. But particularly when it comes to things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, you know what we miss? We miss the engagement. We miss the engagement. Engagement is relational. It's about the interest of others. It's about paying attention. It's about being connected. It's about being committed. It's about my energy. Engagement is the missing component when it comes to most diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts or conversations. We want to provide leadership. We want to take training classes. We want to send people to training classes. We want to read all the books. We go to all the seminars. Good. So what do? At an intellectual level, at a competency level, we get it. Oh, Charles, give me a class on diversity. I'll pass that class. Give me a class on inclusion. I'll pass that class. I'll get an A. So watch this. We have it at a competency level, but when it comes to compassion, the heart, we don't get it there. I know many consultants and leaders in the nonprofit sector and others, they've got certificates on their wall of every leadership class and diversity class they took. They took every certificate, but they can't connect with people. And that becomes the gap. So it's about engagement. What I mean by engagement, imagine this. In our culture, many of us are part of a culture where if two people get engaged, they exchange some artifact, a ring, a necklace, a bracelet, or something, and they get engaged. And one says to the other, would you marry me? Let's get engaged. And they say yes. And then the person says, okay, but before we get engaged, you need to know this about me. I want to get engaged with you, but I don't want to be in a relationship with you. I don't care about your interests. I'm not going to pay too much attention to you. I really don't want to connect to you. I'm not going to be committed, and my energy will be directed elsewhere. Anybody want to get engaged now? No, I think I'll pass. I think I'll pass. Our clients, our family, our community want our engagement, not just our leadership. Let me say that again. The people in your world want your engagement, not just your leadership. We spent so much time talking about leadership. We forgot about the engagement part. And I can promise you, there are people out there who've never been to a diversity, equity, and inclusion class, but they know how to engage, and they could teach the class if they wanted to, because I understand people. It's about leading and engaging across differences. Leading and engaging across, not ignoring differences, not dismissing differences, not discounting or denying differences, but leading and engaging across differences. This is our job, I believe. This is our job. But why? Why do we have to have this conversation? Why is it 2021? We're advanced and, many people are educated and, we have access to so much information now. Why do you still have to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion? Somebody give me the answer there, somebody. Just, it doesn't have to be the textbook answer. It can be if you want to, but just from where you sit and see the world, why we got to talk about this? Who's got something for me?
We have a long way to go. This is Lori Worley.
Lori, we got a long way to go.
Yes.
Lori, it seems like we keep having a long way to go. Is it getting shorter?
It's a journey. No.
All right. So Lori says it's a journey. No, thank you, Lori. Somebody else?
I think we've just been ignoring for some time the impact of the traumatic experiences that people have had throughout their lives and are having, and how that really affects the decision making that goes on. I mean, obviously in the world, but also within our organizations. Right. And that by ignoring it, we're basically slapping band-aids over everything instead of being able to deal kind of with those core issues.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you. Someone else was going to say something?
Sure. I was going to say that we don't spend enough time with each other. We haven't had enough dinners together. We haven't hung out. We haven't allowed each other to be interesting human beings.
Barbara, that's not a COVID thing either. That was even before COVID. Is that fair to say?
Oh, for sure.
Wow. Just haven't spent time together. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would say, I think often we think about ourselves as very accepting and open and inclusive. Yeah. And yet sort of passively move back into my circle of friends as white women, right? Like, so I say, yes, if a Black woman was in my circle, of course I would accept her, but I don't spend a lot of time pushing it out, right? And going after and saying, wow, maybe my circle doesn't look the way I want it to look. Therefore, how do I change it? Right. I think we're sort of just passively going, yeah, I'd be open to it.
Powerful, Alicia. That yes. And matter of fact, there's research that supports what you just said, by the way. So thank you. We'll speak to that. Anyone else? Jenny, you came off mute. You wanted to add something?
I was going to say, there's some amount of human nature in this, like to separate ourselves from others and to distinguish ourselves from each other and not trying to learn. And I think that we finally are at a place in our kind of in human awareness that we can make so much more if we kind of come together and have those difficult conversations. So I think that really is the why that we have to talk about DEI.
Thank you. All of you are on point. Let me add another reason why, and this is a controversial reason. I think there is really one primary reason why we have to have this conversation. One overarching, overriding, deeply penetrating reason we have to have this conversation. As a matter of fact, it's a group of people. There's one particular group of people who I can blame this on. I can take my finger and point it at them and say, it's them. It's their fault. It's one particular group. And they are the reason why we have to keep having this conversation. Who am I talking about? Just take a look at that screen for a second. Those people. If those people would just get a job, if those people would just handle their business, I'm not prejudiced. I just don't want those people living next door to me. Those people okay, but when their kids got into the school, something happened. Those people. We have those people. I put both hands up, but I had surgery, so I can't lift this up. Well, we have those people problem in America. Those people. Now, let me share something with you. As I said at the beginning of today, I'm going to say some things that my grandma would say you don't say out loud. I don't know about you, but in my household, those people was not considered a polite term. You don't call anybody those people. I'm doing it today for shock value and presentation purposes. Please do not get off this line and go call anybody those people and say, Charles said I could say that. No, you don't do that. We don't use that term. But those people. And what happens is, let me warn you before I go any further, because I'm going to go further. Let me warn you. Some of those people might be on the call today. We might be sharing a screen with some of those people right now. Now, I'm not sure. So let's look at see, there's categories of those people. Let's see what's out there. Ooh, we look at some of those people. Democrats are those people. Conservatives are those people. African Americans are those people. Y'all, I live in South Carolina, but I'm from Jersey. I'm a Northerner. I'm one of those people. Foreigners and atheists, Mexicans, Generation X. Any millennials on the line? Lord, we talk about millennials all day long. Those people. Jews, Irish, gender nonconforming, Muslims, the poor, Canadians, people with disabilities, the middle class, Asian men, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, white males, those people. And by the way, this list isn't even close to being exhaustive. It ain't even close. I don't need to get to know you. Barbara, we don't have to go to dinner together. All I got to do is see your car and look at your bumper stickers, and I can tell you everything I need to know about you. Those people. Tell me who you voted for. I got you. I know everything about you. We have a those people problem. Those people. And we got to recognize, here's the challenge with this. Those people normally focus on the negative. It separates them versus us. Look at number 3. It creates an emotional and intellectual disconnect. I can be standing in the grocery store line next to a person. Watch this. I don't see a person. I see one of those people. Did y'all hear what I just said there? I'm standing next to another human being. I don't see a person. That's one of those people. This really goes, and Barbara was on something when she talked about sitting down and breaking bread together. It's possible to live in the same community, next door to somebody. It's possible to work with somebody, live on the same floor, in the same building, in the same cubicle, and not know the person. All you know is what you heard about those people. Do y'all think that's true?
Sure.
We cross paths every day. I don't know you. We can serve on boards of directors together. I don't know the person. All I know is what I heard about those people. We have got to do our best to overcome the those people thinking and the those people mindset. And it's going to create relationships are part of that process. Why? Because look at item number 4 on your screen. Here's what those people does. Number 1, it otherizes. Otherize is not a word. We made it up, but I'm sticking with it. They're other. They're other. And once you otherize somebody or a group of people, now we can ostracize them. Put them over there. Ostracize, now you demonize. Let's talk about everything bad about those people. There are people walking around America today that have opinions about those people and ain't never met one of those persons. You think that's true? Demonize. But I heard. And then you normalize it. That's just the way it is. That's just the way those people are, whoever those people are. And my granddaddy told me a long time ago, all of us are those people to some people.
Sure.
Folks, this one for me always hits home, always does. Quite frankly, it hurts. So let's take a minute to process this and let's be vulnerable. Remember, we're not judging each other. Somebody tell me, as you heard me go through this and show these last couple of slides, what's going on in your heart and head right now? Talk to us. Anyone, please.
Do this all the time.
Yes,
but I do this all the time, but yeah. I do it politically.
Yeah. All the time, Elise. That's right.
I don't do it on color. I don't do it on, lots of other things, but on politics, I do it all the time.
Thank you for being honest, Alicia. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you. Anyone else?
I think it's interesting because I've actually used the language, Charles, especially in the last year or so, when people will say those people, mainly political, I'm like, those people are my people, even though I'm not those people. And it's
Yeah.
so interesting that you use that language, because I mean, I actually have said this
Yeah.
back to people. I imagine many of us find ourselves in a place where we thought that we were different from others, and we could separate ourselves from that in some way that was much better. We're better.
Right.
So it's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you. Anyone else? Let me give you a personal example. A few years ago, I was driving from my home. My daughter was working at the mall, which is near our home, and I was going to pick her up from work. And I'm driving. You ever drive past one of those cars on the highway or on the road, and the music in that car is so loud that it shakes the windows in your car? I mean, it was one of the souped up cars, the big rims on it, and the rims were spinning and so on, and souped up rims, and the music is all loud, and I can't hear my music in my car, my window. I'm like, come on. So I'm gonna be very vulnerable with you. In my mind, watch what happened. I said to myself, why is this young brother banging that music so loud? That's what I said. Listen to my language. I said this, y'all. I'm being vulnerable. I didn't see who was driving the car. I heard the music, I saw the car, and I went right to, there's a young black male in this car playing that music really loud. Why is he doing this? Why is he drawing attention to himself? I'm going to pull up here to this light next to him and kind of look at him with a compassionate look of the elder, and maybe give him to turn the music down, right? Let me help this young man out. We get to the same traffic light. I pull over, I look in the car next to me. It's not who I thought it was. It was a young blonde-haired white teenage girl. That's a real world example of, watch this, those people. Something inside of me said, that's who it is. And guess what? That's who it was not. And folks, we do things like this. So we got to be really careful about the assumptions that we make. Why? Because something called implicit biases. Implicit biases. We can have attitudes towards people or associate stereotypes with them without our conscious knowledge. It impacts our understanding, our decisions, our actions. That was an implicit bias. I just knew I knew what I was doing. I didn't do that at a conscious level. It just happened. I was wrong.
Sure.
I was wrong. Here's what I've learned, and I want you to learn as well. Our implicit biases do not need our permission to surface. Let me say that again. Our implicit biases do not need our permission to surface. They just show up. Somebody's not on mute. If I could ask you to go on mute, that'd be helpful. Thank you. Our implicit biases, again, they do not need our permission. They just surface. And we have them. Let me ask you a question. A moment of public vulnerability and honesty. In the chat room, or either raise your hand, answer yes or no. Are you a prejudiced person?
Oh, sure.
Are you prejudiced? Yes or no?
Sure.
I heard a sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. We all are. Now, watch this. Watch this. Watch where we're going here. When I talk about prejudice, what does prejudice mean? To prejudge.
Sure.
No, notice, folks, I'm not saying, I didn't ask you, were you sexist? Were you misogynistic or homophobic or xenophobic? I said, do you prejudge? We prejudge all the time. And again, my friends in the field of anthropology and biology tell me that's actually part of our human nature. They say it's part of our survival instincts. We're never going to get rid of that. But we got to be able to manage it. And part of managing something, watch this, is acknowledging it. It's acknowledging it. Implicit biases are like blind spots. If you don't look for them, you will be blindsided. You will be blindsided. I'm going to ask Alicia to put you in breakout rooms in a minute. Just random selection, Alicia, however you want to. And I want you to consider these two questions in your breakout room. When, where, or how can implicit biases surface in your work? What, if anything, can we do about it? When, where, or how can implicit biases surface in your work? And what, if anything, can we do about it? Let me give you a fundraising example, and then we'll let you go into breakout rooms. When I first moved to South Carolina, I worked for a gentleman named Jim. Jim was a gentleman who owned a company. He was extremely wealthy, but Jim was that typical person, at least I'll say for where we lived in South Carolina, you could not tell Jim was wealthy by looking at Jim. Jim drove an old beat up pickup truck. He always had on jeans, didn't care what people thought about him. He just did whatever he wanted to do. And I remember, because I was working in part of the business that dealt with the money, I remember the day that Jim came in and said, we're changing banks, we're moving our business account somewhere else. And somebody said, why are you moving the business account? And Jim tells a story of going into the bank. He was looking for some type of service and people treated him horribly, horribly. And when they found out who he was, it changed. But until he pulled out his wallet and his card, had them look at his account and found out who he was and how much money he had in that bank, they didn't treat him well at all. And there was also a case where people were raising money and Jim was not on the list. Somebody said, he didn't have any money. I said, you don't even know that guy. I work with him, because he didn't look a certain part. Again, you've heard stories like that, but biases can surface in our work across the board. If we don't spend time exploring it and talking about it, we'll get bit by it. And I don't want that to happen to you. Okay. So if we can put it in breakouts for 10 minutes, Alicia, I want them to talk about when, where, or how can implicit biases surface in your work, and what, if anything, can you do about it to mitigate it or manage it?
You want like two to three people in the room?
Yeah, we can do about 3 people in the room. That'll be helpful.
Here we go, guys. Let's see if I did this right. I'm sending you to a room. Oh, yeah. Okay. All rooms. What happened?
I think you did it, Alicia. Thank you. Thank you.
Yay. Oh, we're left. Okay. Oh,
They're going. They're going.
wait.
I'm going to let them go. I'm not going to join the room.
I know, but I want to send Jean. How did you not get sent somewhere? Hold on. Jean, why do I have you here? I don't know why I can't put you in a room. Oh, she just left. Okay.
All righty.
All right. I guess as a host, I don't go into room either. So
Yeah.
that's all right. That was terrific.
Good deal. Is this working for you?
Yeah, it's great. It's really it's uncomfortable, right?
Yeah, it's uncomfortable. Yeah. And this is like the 101 right here. This is just the first class.
Well, it's interesting because we have a group of people here who, for the most part, but for the most part, are on the left side of the agenda, right? And see themselves, as do I, as very open-minded.
Here, birds. Is that the birds with you, Emily?
I think so.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, the cicadas aren't too bad here yet.
Nice, nice. How was your conversation?
Really good.
Really good?
Yeah,
I'm
Lori's
here too. Yeah.
Hey, Lori.
Hi.
What did y'all talk about?
So one thing we talked about was trying to let go of assumptions and the they thinking.
Yeah.
And my example was I had the opportunity to work with an HBCU,
Okay.
in my work. And I was invited in to meet with the president, who's African American, and my contact is African American.
Mhm.
And my first thought was, oh, dang, he's going to find out we're white, and he's not going to want to, use us for this project.
Uh-huh.
And, I was completely wrong. In fact, in the conversation, the president mentioned that he was purposely looking for a white firm because the donors primarily were white. And it was very strategic. It was like, I want to make sure the language resonates, you know, with our audience. And anyway, that was what we talked about.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Lori. Thanks for sharing. Thank you. Anyone else want to share a takeaway from your breakout conversation? We'd love to hear.
So I'll share, and Charles, apologies to you because we talked about something that was a little bit off topic from implicit bias.
Okay.
But I think it will be very interesting to the rest of the group.
Okay.
We talked about, there's been a real focus on donor-centered fundraising in the past, you know, period of time. Penelope Burke is the one who kind of created that concept.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just starting to think differently about having things be centered on the donor versus having things be centered on the client, the beneficiary of our clients. You know, the organization is working with typically people or maybe animals or whomever that are benefiting from their services. And fundraising as a field really focuses on centering things on the donor, which has been effective. You know, it works, but potentially to the detriment of how we talk about the beneficiaries of the work. And, you know, potentially using them, talking down about them, just not really letting them tell their own stories. It's telling stories about them. So these are just things that are on my mind, and that's some of what we talked about in our breakout group.
Chris, first of all, thank you for sharing that. And I think that is very consistent with implicit biases. Chris, I was in a presentation, someone talked about donor bias. They use that term. They said that, yes, we are looking out for the donor's interest, but sometimes we can put the donor's interest ahead of the people who are serving interest. And that can be a challenge. Thank you. I think that's really, really on point. Anyone else want to share? Any takeaways? Going once, going twice. All righty. Okay. So again, I want you, again, I can't give you homework, but I will take it if you like. Ask yourself, like, look at a typical week and just kind of spend time asking yourself, are my implicit biases surfacing? And one way to do that, and I'll show you how, one is you start to pause. Every time you make a decision, make an assumption, where did that come from? Why did I do that? Because it happens so quickly. And if we learn to pause and ask ourselves why before we do, we'll start realizing some of this is happening at a subconscious level, and I don't even know why I did it. It's a good exercise. Try it. Okay. So diversity. You've probably seen definitions for these terms before, but I want to lay a basic foundation for you as you do your work ahead. When you hear me talk about the word diversity, I am simply talking about the presence of differences, period. Period. The presence of differences. That's all diversity is. Diversity doesn't mean Black, doesn't mean African-American, doesn't mean male or female. Diversity is just, it's the presence of differences. And here, watch this. Here's kind of the secret that's not a secret, but it still seems like a secret. It's more than what people look like. Let me say that again. It's more than what we look like. Why am I saying this? Because many people will say this, we have a diversity problem. Okay, let's fix it. What are we going to do? Let's get some people who look different and take a picture. Put them on the website. Put them on a brochure. Okay, check that box. We're done. We're not done. Diversity is simply the presence of differences. And here's the key. Difference is seen and unseen. There are things about Charles Weathers that you have no clue about. No clue about. I might appear to be a Black male. I might appear to be a certain age because of the gray on my chin right here. You have no idea about things from my faith affiliation to my political affiliation, to my education level, to my socioeconomic status. There's so much going on, my neurodiversity. There's so much going on with me you have no clue about. What can happen in many cases is you can take Lori and Charles and put Lori and Charles in the room and say, we got diversity. Lori and Charles look different. Check that box. Lori and Charles might think exactly the same way. Is that possible? We see this happen all the time, especially on nonprofit boards. We see this happen all the time. Yes, the optics of diversity are important, but you can't stop at the optics of diversity. Trust me, I love seeing the beauty of diversity, but we can't check that box and say, that's the work is done. This is why most diversity efforts fail, because we achieved the presence of differences, but then we stopped. And I'm going to tell you what happened next. Equity. This is what has to happen. First of all, equity. Equity is fair, just, and reasonable. Equity is not the same as diversity. Equitable is a worldview, it's a lens, it's a philosophy. Are we fair? Are we just? Are we reasonable? Equity does not mean equal. Write that down if you want to take notes. Equity does not mean equal. You ever seen this visual before? Very popular visual. You see it on social media all the time. Equality, everybody gets a box. Somebody said, no, we want equity. What's fair, what's reasonable, what's just? Well, you know what? You don't need a box. You can see. You just need one box. You can see. Okay, you get 2 boxes. Now everybody can see we've achieved equity. Everybody clap. Let's move on. People love this visual. I'm not a big fan of it. I'm going to tell you why. I look at the visual, and it's a nice visual, not critical, just going to tell you why. I look at the visual, and the first question I ask is the fence necessary? Now, just bear with me, please. Just bear with me.
Oh, yeah.
Is the fence necessary? Do we really need the fence? Now, what I have found, and this gets controversial, what I have found, particularly when I work with nonprofit clients, there are many nonprofits in our country that are in the business of providing boxes. Did y'all catch what I just said?
Sure.
That's deep, y'all. In the business of providing boxes. And sure, there's a need for a box. But the first question should not be, how do we get a box out there? The first question is, what fences can we remove? Equity. Now, how does equity, what are fences? Fences are a metaphor for policies, criteria, or standards. I'm not anti-policy, criteria, standard. Sure, you got to have them. But every time you set a policy, every time there's a criteria, every time there's a standard, that's a potential fence. So I'm not saying get rid of all the policies in the world, get rid of all the criteria. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if we have policies and criteria and standards, let's make sure they're necessary and they don't cause undue pain, harm, or challenges for one group over another. That's when it becomes a fence. There's a big difference. And we are surrounded by fences. One example is an organization, an international consulting firm I know of. They had a policy that to be an entry-level analyst, you had to have at least a bachelor's degree and 3 years of experience. Somebody sat down and said, they looked at their labor pool, they weren't getting enough people applying for the job. They said, we don't really need this for that position. They said, what do you need? If a person has 2 years of college, just 2 years of college, we can train them on the rest. They changed the criteria, the labor pool increased, best applicants ever, and their analysts are thriving. That's an example of a company saying that was an unnecessary fence. I want to put you in breakout one more time for another 10 minutes. What fences exist in our organization or community? You can use your own organization or maybe a client you worked with. Is the fence necessary? Or is the fence in need of repair, modification, or removal? Remember, fences, policies, criteria, standards, expectations. Do we really need that? We're surrounded by fences. Let's just make sure we need the fences that we have. That's what I'm saying. Alicia, can we put them in breakout for 10 more minutes? Thank you.
Hey, Maureen.
Hey, Alicia. Hey, Charles.
Hey, Maureen, how are you?
I'm good. Sorry I had to miss the first part of this.
No, fine, fine. Righty, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back. Does maybe one or two people want to give a takeaway from your conversation before I go into the last part? Any fences that you were able to identify or talk about?
I was going to tell you, Charles, that Rita encouraged me to share that one of the conversations happening in other consultant groups that I'm in is about this utilization of nonprofit best practices and how do our best practices limit our ability to have flexible, inclusive kind of processes that may make us better and be able to solve the world's problems in a better way.
That's right. Jenny, that's such a powerful example. You're going to hear people say this. I just heard this recently. This is a best practice. And the next question is for who?
Right.
Best or where? Be very careful of that. Thank you. David, you were going to say something?
We Taryn and I talked, a couple of different areas, but focused on the professional fundraising community.
Yep.
Of course there are fences, but I really feel like AFP, not just the international association, but I think the DC chapter as well, understands that there are fences. And I think some organizations don't even, they're just sitting inside the stadium eating popcorn, It's just all concerned about the game and who's winning. They're not considering the bigger picture. They're not up at 30,000 feet. I think AFP is aggressively saying, what, is this fence necessary? How do we surmount it? How do we make it, how do we make the experience, this profession, accessible to all and embracing of all? So
powerful. Thank you, David. Powerful. Thank you so much. Before I move into my last few slides, I want to acknowledge Christina in the chat room. Christina said, my pet peeve is when someone is referred to as a diverse candidate or diverse. I agree. Please don't ever do that. Don't call somebody diverse. That's our diverse employee, our diverse candidate. You set folks up for failure. It's rude. It's insensitive. A lot of different things. Do not do that. Thank you, Christine, for that reminder. Appreciate you. Okay, so a few more definitions and some advice as we part today. Here's the difference between inclusion and diversity. Diversity is the presence of differences. What's inclusion? Look at this. We embrace, encourage, welcome, value, and consider differences. Big differences. Inclusion, embrace, encourage, welcome, value, consider. Diversity is being present. Difference. But inclusion is the embracing, the encouraging, the welcoming, the valuing. It's a whole different mindset. In Africa, there's a term Ubuntu. Ubuntu means common humanity. I am what I am because of who we all are. I am because you are. It's an Ubuntu. I belong. We're here. We see each other in each other. And that belonging, here's when you know you're in a space of belonging. With authenticity, you can show up whole as yourself. Let me say that again. With authenticity, you can show up whole as yourself. Folks, I know people who can't put the picture of their loved ones on their desk at work because of who they love. I go to work every day in a place where, watch this, I exist, but I don't belong. I'm present, but I don't belong. I can't show my fullness here because it's not accepted. Belonging is the outcome. Belonging is the outcome that we're striving for, a community of belonging. What does it look like? Check this out. Imagine this place, diverse team and community, the presence of differences. We operate with an equitable lens or philosophy. We're fair, reasonable, and just. We engage in inclusive practices, welcoming, considering, and encouraging. And everybody, regardless of what I look like, who I love, who I worship, what I can do, what I can't do, there's a sense of belonging, Ubuntu. The one thing I want you to remember about us as human beings, and I believe this, and I've yet to see this not be true, we all want three things. We want to be seen, we want to be heard, and we want to be valued. Everybody wants to be seen and heard and valued. Think about a time in your life when you were in a place where you felt like you were not seen, you felt dismissed, you felt discounted, you felt disregarded. Maybe nobody even said anything to you, but you felt, I just don't, this is not for me. That's exclusion. And we don't want that. We want a culture of inclusion. And to do that, we've got to lead and engage across differences, not deny them, not dismiss them, not discount them, not ignore them. Celebrate, honor, appreciate, acknowledge. That's what it looks like. This is our work right here. This is our work. And what I want you to consider is, what could that look like here? And we're going to just talk about this. This is just like your homework, so to speak. I'm about to wrap up and take questions. But I want you to consider, what could that look like here? What could leading and engaging across differences really look like in my firm, in my consultancy, with my clients, in my community? It's across the board. Diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging. They're not the same, but they go together. Just remember that. That's the key. Okay. So let me pause here. We wanted to end with about 7 to 10 minutes left. Just open up to any particular questions related to you, your firm, your practice, something you're dealing with, you want to talk about. I'll be happy to address that if I can. And if I don't have the answer, I'll maybe try to find somebody to get you the answer, or anything you want me to cover again. I'll open up for questions now. Sorry.
Hey, Charles, it's Julie Carter.
Hey.
I'd be interested in your perspective and guidance to organizations and companies that felt so compelled to come up with a statement last summer, and it's sort of continuing. Is like these position statements that may or may not have anything to do with the work that they're doing.
What we're finding, great question, Julie. Here's what we're finding. We are finding that organizations are coming up with position statements, race equity statements, or equity statements, statements of inclusion. There are all different types of terms for them. And it's interesting. In Charlotte, we're working with a client, and one of the questions we said was, why are you doing this? Now, we didn't write the statement, somebody else did, but we knew they were doing it. We said, tell us about the process. And they said, our stakeholders expect us to take a stand on certain things, even if it's not our mission. So our board decided this was so important to just overall who we are and who we want to be in the community, that we put that statement out there. And so that was, one example of a company making that statement. Others are making it because it's clearly within who they are as an organization, their mission. And Julie, the last thing I'm finding is, and I'm hearing quite a bit of this, people are saying our values dictate that we make a statement. Go back to when I said earlier, what our values dictate we do. Many boards and CEOs are saying, sure, we may not be directly in the work of race equity, but race equity is part of our work. It's part of everything that happens in this country. So therefore, we're going to make that statement, and it aligns with our values. So that's why they're doing it. At least the ones that I'm talking to. I hope that helps. And by the way, Julie, I'll say this as well, and this is not public in many cases. Well, actually never public for the most part. There are some that aren't doing it. There are some that are saying constantly, you know what, we're not going to do it because I had one CEO say, we're not going to put the statement out there because as an organization, our culture is not really ready to engage in that type of work, and I don't want to set us up for failure. Again, not saying I agree or disagree, but that was their stance.
Interesting.
As a follow-up to that, what do you do when they put out a statement, a corporation or a nonprofit puts out a statement, but they don't adhere to it with their practices?
Wow, Jennifer, my favorite word, Jennifer, accountability, right? Accountability. It's interesting, Jennifer, here's what I found. If I can't count on you, watch this. If I can't count on you to do the things that you voluntarily promised to do, can I really count on you? So example, just like values, I tell all my clients, your values are your voluntary promises that you make to your clients, your consumers, your staff, your donors. Those are promises that you make. Those are your values, your promises. So you got to keep them because you made them. You made them. So now when they don't, I'm going to go back to how do we hold them accountable? Some people, they deal directly with the board of directors or the executive director, or have stakeholders that hold them accountable. It all depends on the organization, but I go straight to what are you going to do to hold the people accountable? Unfortunately, by the way, Jennifer, just to be real, normally nothing. unless it's something totally egregious. Again, I'm just being honest with y'all. My experience has been, unless it's something totally egregious, we are still in a space where you've heard the term performative, right? It works because just put the statement out there. People will read it, forget about it. We can go on to business as usual. I'm not saying people are doing that at a conscious, purposeful level, but that's why people are getting so upset over this performative work, because a lot of folks just doing stuff to say, I check that box, dot, that I, and nothing changes. I think those days are changing, and I'm glad for that, where people are saying, if you're going to say it, we're going to hold you accountable to it. I'm so thankful we're there now. Thank you for that question, Jennifer. Any other questions? All righty. Alicia and Maureen, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you. Look, I hope you got something out of today. My expectation is this: take the best and leave the rest. You may not do everything I did today, but find one thing that you can infuse into your language, your vocabulary, your practice, your habits, and watch it have a ripple effect and help you grow in this area. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Charles, that was so terrific. I'd love to have like a virtual round of applause or a Zoom round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was really terrific. We're so happy you came to us. Maureen, I don't know if you, oh, I see your little claps. It's actually really fun because normally our group talks for a little while and then we ask questions, but in this case, we got to talk, we got to engage, we got breakout rooms. I thought it was terrific hour and a half. Maureen, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, I'm glad I got to jump in, even though a little late today. And Charles, thank you so much again for spending some time with us here today. I think just a reminder, we'll do this again in a couple of months, and I'll make sure we get the links out for that. Since we've had speakers our last 2 times, we'll do the open sharing format next time. And Charles, we did also record today. I'm assuming you guys worked all that out at the beginning, so we'll share that out with members too. But
thank you. Appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
And thanks to Maureen and Alicia for putting this together, and Charles for speaking. I think all of us really appreciate you.
It's great.
And Ginny for the reference to Charles too.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for finding it. All right, Charles, enjoy South Carolina.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Send that video of bugs.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
See ya.